What if the history you've been taught is just the version they allowed? Lost empires, forbidden texts, erased revolutions. Their disappearance wasn't by chance. Top 10 untold facts. Generals, princes, philosophers, and the real people behind the masks. This isn't just history. This is the enigmatic veil. If history stays silent, listening is up to you. If it's not in the books, you'll find it here.
Long before 1839, on April 25th, 1823, a boy was born in the Ottoman palace. This boy was not just a prince. He was the child of a dynasty destined to shape the fate of the Ottoman Empire. His name was Abdülmecid I. Abdülmecid was born as the son of Sultan Mehmed II, one of the strongest and most reform-minded rulers of the Ottoman Empire. Mehmed II was known for his efforts to modernize and renew the empire. Every step in the palace was closely observed. Every word and action shaped the course of future history. The young Abdülmecid grew up in this environment, within the magnificent walls of the palace, on top of exquisite carpets, surrounded by the mysterious sounds of the corridors and the whispers of palace attendants. His mother, the consort of Mahmud II, brought a delicate and refined atmosphere to the palace, which deeply influenced her son. The family environment was filled with experiences of royalty and power. Every corner, every room reflected the political and social layers of the Ottoman Empire. Mahmud II was not only a father, he raised his son to become both a prince and a future sultan. From an early age, Abdülmecid observed the complexities of the world around him, the intrigues in the palace, the secrets of the nobles, and the tension of state affairs. Even as a child, he received guidance on governance, learning the nuances behind the crucial decisions that would shape the empire's future. His eyes saw not only the elegance of the palace, but also the cunning and dramatic world of the Ottoman state. Growing up in such an environment, Abdülmecid was being shaped not only to become a sultan, but also to implement the Tanzimat reforms, a leader who would bring transformative change. Every step, glance, and experience prepared him for the historic responsibility ahead. This young prince, born in the palace, would one day open a new chapter in Ottoman history, a story not just of power and inheritance, but of the dawn of a modern era. The succession of the throne in the Ottoman Empire was never a simple matter. It was not merely the announcement of a name. The fate of the empire, millions of lives, and the direction of the state depended on it. In the early 19th century, this responsibility rested on Mahmud II's shoulders. One of the most decisive moments of his life was choosing which of his sons would become the future sultan. Abdülmecid stood out among his siblings. From a young age, his demeanor, speech, and gaze attracted the attention of the palace elite. He was no ordinary prince. His face carried both the innocence of youth and the resolve to carry a vast empire. Mehmed II closely observed his sons, evaluating not just seniority or eligibility, but their aptitude for governance, intelligence, judgment, and character. Over time, Abdülmecid's name gained prominence within the palace and among state officials. Several qualities set him apart. He was young, yet his youth was perceived as strength rather than weakness. The empire had been weakened by wars, internal conflicts, and reform struggles. A young, energetic, and forward-thinking sultan was exactly what the empire needed. Despite growing up in luxury, he was never a prince who merely enjoyed comforts. He attended meetings, learned how decisions were made, studied maps, and took a keen interest in the Ottoman bureaucracy. Many recall him spending hours in the palace library, carefully reading historical and political texts even as a child. Mahmud II, regarded as the reconstructor of the Ottoman Empire, had abolished the Janissary Corps, modernized the army, and introduced reforms in education and administration. Abdülmecid grew up under his guidance, inheriting the reformist spirit and understanding that the old world was collapsing and a new one had to be built. The palace elite, viziers, and experienced officials recognized Abdülmecid's discipline and leadership. He was neither impulsive nor irresponsible. He listened carefully and weighed his opinions, qualities essential for ruling an empire. Consequently, Abdülmecid was seen as the most suitable candidate for the throne, not only due to birthright, but also for his intelligence, character, and reformist vision. Following Mahmud II's death, Abdülmecid ascended to the throne in 1839, and his rise surprised no one. For years, the palace whispers had declared, "The future sultan is him." His accession, though ceremonially simple, occurred amid palace intrigues. Mahmud II's failing health had intensified secretive plans, and every corridor echoed with whispers of uncertainty. From the sultans to the senior pashas, everyone wanted to know who would inherit the throne, for this decision would determine their own power. While some supported Abdülmecid for his youth and reformist potential, others, loyal to old traditions, feared losing influence. Secret meetings took place, and every newcomer's footsteps in the corridors heightened the tension. Despite these challenges, influential ministers and experienced officials agreed that Abdülmecid, though young, was the only suitable choice to ensure the empire's future. Thus, after long deliberations, secret discussions, and countless whispers in the palace, the decision was made. Abdülmecid would become the new sultan. In July 1839, at just 16 years old, Abdülmecid ascended the throne, facing his first major challenge, the issue of Mehmed Ali Pasha of Egypt. Mehmed Ali had modernized Egypt, built a powerful army, established factories, and controlled the economy, in effect acting almost independently from the Ottoman state. His ambitions extended to Syria, Lebanon, and the Hijaz, threatening the empire's core. Mahmud II had tried to address the issue, but his death left the Ottoman army weakened after the Battle of Nizib, marking a clear decline in Ottoman power. Furthermore, the entire Ottoman navy defected to Mehmed Ali in Alexandria, leaving the empire vulnerable. Abdülmecid, though young, understood the gravity of the situation. The fate of the empire rested on his shoulders. Diplomacy became essential. Letters were sent to major European powers, Britain, Austria, Prussia, and Russia, to form a coalition against Mehmed Ali. By 1840, a powerful alliance materialized, with British and Austrian fleets entering the Mediterranean. After bombardments, naval actions, and diplomatic pressure, the London Convention was signed in 1841. Mehmed Ali retained hereditary rule over Egypt only, while Syria, Lebanon, Adana, and Cyprus returned to Ottoman control. This prevented the disintegration of the empire, and Abdülmecid emerged as a young leader who had saved the state. The Crimean War, 1853 to 1856, was another defining moment triggered by Russian ambitions in the Balkans and the Black Sea. It involved a coalition of Ottoman, British, and French forces against Russia battles, including the prolonged siege of Sevastopol, marked one of the bloodiest campaigns of the 19th century. The war highlighted the importance of diplomacy, European alliances, and modernization, ultimately resulting in the Treaty of Paris, 1856, which reinforced Ottoman sovereignty and limited Russian influence. In the Balkans, Abdülmecid faced frequent uprisings from Serbs, Bulgarians, Greeks, and Wallachians influenced by nationalism. Through a combination of military expeditions, administrative reforms, and diplomacy, he maintained control, balancing internal stability with international pressures. Domestic military campaigns and administrative reforms strengthened central authority. Provincial governors were placed under stricter supervision, the army modernized, and bureaucratic structures reformed. The Tanzimat Edict of 1839 laid the foundation for a modern, legal, and more equitable governance system, influencing not only his era, but the future trajectory of the Ottoman state and the eventual establishment of the Republic of Turkey. Despite wars, uprisings, and internal challenges, Abdülmecid's reign was a period of modernization, reform, and preservation of the empire's integrity. Abdülmecid I died in 1861, ending his reign. He was succeeded by Abdülaziz, who continued some of his reforms and modernization efforts. In 1861, upon ascending the throne, Sultan Abdülaziz initiated comprehensive reforms to bring the Ottoman army not only in numbers, but also in quality up to European standards. His focus on modernizing the military went beyond simply acquiring new weapons. He aimed to elevate every officer's and soldier's military knowledge, tactical skills, and discipline. At military schools in Istanbul, soldiers underwent rigorous European-style training all day long. Infantry units marched in precise formation. Artillery crews meticulously maneuvered heavy cannons and aligned their barrels. And cavalry practiced complex maneuvers on horseback, including rapid charges and retreats. Officers analyzed real battle scenarios on tactical maps, while commanders directed troops as if they were in actual combat situations. Every soldier and officer now contributed to the Army's strength, not only through physical power and sheer numbers, but also through strategic thinking, discipline, and coordinated action according to European standards. This process ensured that each individual fully understood their role, maintained battlefield coordination, and internalized the new principles of military order. Abdulaziz did not stop at supplying new weapons. He modernized the spirit, education, and tactical readiness of the army, adapting the Ottoman military to the demands of a new era. His goal was not merely to strengthen the army in terms of firepower, but also to raise officers and soldiers' strategic thinking, tactical skill, and discipline to European levels, ensuring that the army was both agile and effective on the battlefield. 1. Modernization of military schools. During the reign of Sultan Abdulaziz, 1861 to 1876, existing military schools were restructured to resemble European military academies. The Imperial Military Academy, Mektebi Harbiye, and other institutions introduced new curricula, teaching not only physical training but also mathematics, topography, geography, mechanics, artillery, and military strategy in depth. Each officer was trained to prepare battle plans, analyze military operations, and make critical decisions. The programs also included leadership skills, moral and psychological training for soldiers, and military ethics, ensuring that graduates were well-rounded both intellectually and morally. 2. Infantry and cavalry. Training infantry units focused on discipline and precise execution of orders. Every soldier learned to understand and carry out commands instantly. Cavalry units practiced mounted maneuvers, charges, and retreats repeatedly, developing coordination between rider and horse, swift engagement with targets, and strategic positioning. 3. Artillery and gunner training. Special training grounds were established for artillery units, where soldiers learned to position heavy cannons and machine guns accurately, aim precisely, and adjust fire. Every gunner understood the technical specifications of their weapons, calculated firing trajectories, and delivered precise strikes on enemy positions. Experienced European military advisors and instructors were brought in to ensure both theoretical knowledge and practical skills were mastered. 4. Tactical exercises and map usage. Officers participated in tactical exercises, simulating real battle conditions. They were trained to analyze diverse combat scenarios, maneuver units strategically, and make informed decisions using maps. Training took place in varied terrains, mountains, forests, and plains, to develop soldiers' adaptability and operational flexibility. In 1861, when Abdulaziz ascended the throne, he did not limit his focus to strengthening the military power of the Ottoman Empire. He also placed great emphasis on modernizing civil infrastructure. To this end, road and bridge projects were prioritized as key areas that directly affected the empire's economy, military mobility, and social development. Expansion of the road network. During Abdulaziz's reign, new roads were constructed and existing ones extensively renovated to improve the speed and safety of travel between cities and regions. These roads allowed trade caravans to move more easily and enabled agricultural products to be transported faster from villages to cities and ports. Each road project also served strategic purposes, ensuring the rapid movement of troops and the swift delivery of supplies. Construction of railways were considered the beginning of an industrial and commercial revolution within the Ottoman Empire. In particular, rail lines connecting Istanbul with Rumelia and Izmir with Anatolia accelerated the transport of goods and strengthened integration between regions. Railway projects also linked trade centers and optimized the flow of products from rural areas to urban markets. European technologies were implemented in railway construction, and engineers designed bridges, tunnels, and track systems according to European standards. Bridge construction. During Abdulaziz's reign, large iron bridges were constructed over rivers and ravines. These bridges not only facilitated the transport of goods and people, but also symbolized the modernization of engineering technology. The bridges were aligned with the most advanced European technical standards, ensuring safe passage for both cargo and pedestrians. During construction, engineering details such as load-bearing capacity, resistance to water flow, material selection, and structural stability were carefully considered application of modern technologies. New construction technologies were applied in road and bridge projects, including iron and steel structures, concrete foundations, and modular support systems. European engineers and technical advisors transferred their knowledge to local craftsmen, helping to spread modern engineering expertise throughout the empire. These projects did not merely create physical infrastructure, they also strengthened the strategic power of the empire, enhanced military mobility, and improved economic efficiency. During the reign of the second Abdulaziz, the extensive road, bridge, and railway projects were not mere construction efforts. They reshaped the economic and social fabric of the Ottoman Empire. The newly built and renovated roads created faster, safer, and more reliable routes between cities, towns, and rural areas. Merchants could transport agricultural products, raw materials, and manufactured goods with unprecedented speed, reducing spoilage and travel time. This connectivity invigorated regional trade networks, linking remote villages to bustling urban centers and major ports, fostering a more integrated economy. Railways in particular became arteries of commerce and communication. The lines connecting Istanbul to Rumelia and Izmir to Anatolia allowed for bulk transportation of goods that had previously been impossible or extremely time-consuming. This infrastructure accelerated the movement of both people and resources, enabling not only the faster delivery of commodities, but also encouraging population mobility and labor shifts, which in turn stimulated local markets and industries. Bridges constructed over rivers and valleys were engineered with the latest European techniques, ensuring they could carry heavy loads, including carts, carriages, and even early industrial machinery. These bridges acted as critical connectors, eliminating natural barriers that had once slowed trade and communication. The technological sophistication of these structures also symbolized the empire's commitment to modernization, signaling to foreign visitors, diplomats, and investors that the Ottoman state was adopting contemporary European engineering standards. Urban architecture and public buildings completed under the second Abdulaziz's rule transformed the skyline of Istanbul and other key cities' palaces. Administrative centers and monumental structures combined European design elements with Ottoman aesthetics, projecting power, stability, and sophistication. These impressive constructions not only enhanced civic pride, but also served as a tangible representation of the empire's modernization, leaving a strong impression on both local populations and foreign observers. In essence, the infrastructural and architectural initiatives of the Sector Abdulaziz generated a profound ripple effect. They strengthened trade routes, facilitated industrial and agricultural growth, expanded employment opportunities, and redefined urban identity. The projects exemplified a vision of a modern, resilient, and economically integrated Ottoman Empire, capable of standing on equal footing with contemporary European powers. During the reign of Abdulaziz, starting in 1861, infrastructure projects were not limited to physical construction alone. They also deeply promoted education and technological advancement. European engineers collaborated directly on bridge and railway projects, allowing local engineers and technical workers to learn the most advanced European construction methods and technologies. Each project, whether the structure of a bridge, the rails of a railway, tunnels, or modular support systems, required both theoretical knowledge and practical skills, enabling local technical staff to gain significant experience. These projects increased the empire's technological potential. Each new bridge and railway not only improved trade and transportation, but also facilitated the spread of engineering and logistical expertise across the country. Strategically, this infrastructure accelerated both military and civil mobility, enhancing the operational efficiency of armies and trade caravans. Consequently, Abdulaziz's projects did more than create material wealth. They built a strong educational and technological foundation for future generations. The Ottoman Empire was facing strengthening the empire's power and resilience. Foreign debts had risen sharply, the state treasury was nearly empty, and public dissatisfaction was growing. Among the newly emerging young officers and bureaucrats, opposition to Abdulaziz's rule had become especially strong. Taking advantage of this tense atmosphere, a powerful group led by Midhat Pasha, Hussein Avni Pasha, and the Sheikh al-Islam organized a coup against the palace. On May 30th, 1876, Abdulaziz was forcibly deposed, and the throne was given to Murad V, the son of Abdulmajid I. In the tense days of May 1876, the Ottoman palace was filled not with calm, but with a quiet storm. After the forced dethronement of Sultan Abdulaziz, the empire suddenly stood on the threshold of a new era, and in that moment, all eyes turned to one man, Shahzadeh Murad. Murad's rise to the throne appeared smooth on the surface, but behind the scenes it was a complex and emotional transition. In reality, Midhat Pasha and the statesmen behind the coup had long planned for Murad to become the next sultan. They believed that the young prince, who admired Western ideas and modernization, could become the symbol of a new reformist age. The morning after Abdulaziz was removed, the corridors of Dolmabahce Palace were filled with hurried footsteps, tense whispers, and nervous anticipation. Servants rushed to prepare rooms for the new sultan, while ministers and pashas anxiously waited for the final decision. At that same time, Murad was being brought from his residence to the palace. His face carried the weight of enormous responsibility mixed with fear. His uncle had just been deposed by force, and now the future of the empire was being placed entirely on his shoulders. When Murad arrived, he was officially informed of the situation. Shocked and deeply shaken by the sudden turn of events, he hesitated, but under strong pressure from the statesman, he finally agreed to ascend the throne. A short yet formal ceremony was held in the palace, and Shahzadeh Murad became Sultan Murad V. His accession marked a moment filled with both hope and uncertainty. While many in the empire welcomed the new ruler with optimism, Murad's fragile psychological state and the severe economic and political crisis of the empire would soon create serious challenges. After ascending the throne, the hope and energy that once shone on Murad's face soon gave way to anxiety. The weight of state affairs and palace responsibilities overwhelmed him, making every decision a struggle. Even the simplest matters could irritate him, and he began to show tense and irritable behavior. Every move and word drew the attention of his advisors, who grew increasingly concerned about his indecisiveness. He would sit by the window at night, staring into the distance, or pace the palace corridors lost in thought. The dark circles under his eyes and his weary expression openly revealed his inner tension. The weight of state affairs and palace duties burdened him further, and even simple matters could provoke irritation. This situation deeply worried the advisors and high-ranking officials, who feared that the Sultan's physical and mental health could affect the governance of the empire. For Murad, who ascended the throne in 1866, had a brief reign overshadowed by both his personal health issues and the deep crises facing the Ottoman Empire. By the summer of 1876, the empire was in severe financial distress. Foreign debts were soaring, and social and military unrest had reached its peak. Murad's fragile physical and psychological condition severely limited his ability to make decisions, creating distrust within the palace and the administration. In this situation, senior advisors and high-ranking officials recognized that Murad could no longer effectively rule. Under the guidance of powerful statesmen like Midhat Pasha, a plan was orchestrated, and on August 31st, 1876, Murad was officially deposed. Although the process appeared orderly on the surface, behind the scenes it involved intense political pressure, secret consultations, and careful diplomatic calculations. Following his deposition, Abdulhamid II was declared the new sultan. Murad was removed from the palace and lived a secluded, quiet life, his fragile health and psychological strain continuing. This event remains a dramatic and pivotal moment in Ottoman history, marking a brief yet tumultuous transfer of power. After being deposed, Murad lived a quiet life away from the palace. His health problems and psychological stress continued to affect him. In November 1904, at the age of 38, Murad passed away in his residence. His death became a symbol of his short and dramatic reign, reflecting both the turbulent periods of the Ottoman Empire and and his personal vulnerabilities and struggles. In Abdülhamid was born in Istanbul in 1842. Growing up in the palace, this young prince showed an interest in state affairs from an early age. In 1876, after the short and dramatic reign of Murad, he ascended to the throne. His reign came at a critical time for the Ottoman Empire. Internal crises, external pressures, and a population eager for change. In the early years of his reign, Abdülhamid respected the constitution, but soon he suspended parliament and opted for a strong, centralized rule. He was both a protective and strategic leader. Abroad, he skillfully managed diplomatic relations with European powers, while domestically he modernized the empire through reforms such as schools, railways, and telegraph networks. The Ottoman Empire was in a deep crisis. Pressures from European powers abroad and demands for reforms and protests at home challenged the Sultan at every turn. In these difficult times, Abdülhamid immediately established a centralized and strong system of governance. He concentrated authority in his own hands, overseeing state affairs directly. This approach not only made administration more effective, but also aimed to prevent the disintegration of the empire. His strict rule inspired fear in some and respect in others. At the palace and across the provinces, everyone followed his decisions carefully, because Abdülhamid monitored every detail, leaving no room for error to ensure the empire's stability. External pressures from Europe, along with internal unrest and calls for reform, confronted him constantly. In response, he centralized power and personally supervised state affairs. Every province and district had to implement his orders immediately. For Abdülhamid, the empire's stability was paramount. He scrutinized every detail at the palace and beyond, leaving no gaps. While his authoritarian approach was intimidating to some, for many it represented a protective system that kept the empire from collapsing. Officials, governors, and military leaders carefully observed his directives and aligned their actions accordingly. During his reign, centralization and the consolidation of authority allowed the Ottoman administration to remain stable for decades. Abdülhamid entered history as a protective and strategic leader, with each decision and instruction aimed at securing the empire's future. His authoritarian and centralized rule served as a guarantee against the empire's disintegration and left a lasting mark on the lives of the people, the palace, and state officials. Abdülhamid gave special attention to education to safeguard the empire's future. Under his reign, the school network expanded, new schools were opened, and teacher training was emphasized. The establishment of separate schools for boys and girls reflected his modern vision, aiming to educate the next generation with contemporary knowledge and skills. He supported not only religious schools, but also scientific and technical education. Curricula in science, mathematics, technology, and natural sciences were developed so that youth could gain knowledge aligned with European standards while contributing to the empire's modernization. He also focused on the quality of teachers, inviting foreign experts, and modernizing school buildings, libraries, and laboratories. These reforms elevated education and strengthened both national and scientific consciousness among the younger generation. Through these initiatives, Abdülhamid shaped the empire not only as a ruler, but as a modern-thinking leader, mobilizing all resources to train future leaders and ensure the empire's modernization. To unite distant regions and strengthen governance, Abdülhamid prioritized transportation and communication. Railway construction accelerated, connecting Istanbul to remote corners of Anatolia. These railways facilitated trade, military movement, and brought the empire's regions closer together. The telegraph network was expanded, allowing messages to travel in minutes instead of hours. Abdülhamid used the telegraph for state affairs, security, and monitoring, enabling rapid decision-making across the empire. The postal system was modernized, ensuring faster and more reliable delivery. These reforms enhanced administration, stimulated economic and social life, and strengthened internal integration, symbolizing Abdülhamid's vision of the empire as a unified entity under careful supervision. Abdülhamid also focused on foreign policy and diplomacy. His reign was a critical period. European powers eyed Ottoman territories, and unrest in the Balkans was rising. He skillfully avoided open war, relying on diplomacy and secret negotiations to protect the empire's borders. Abdülhamid balanced relations with Germany, Great Britain, France, and Russia, pursuing both friendship and cautious competition. Through embassies and diplomatic representatives, the Ottoman position was safeguarded. In the Balkans and the Middle East, he prioritized negotiations and strategic alliances over force, demonstrating his strategic and far-sighted leadership. The empire preserved its borders through careful planning and diplomacy, avoiding open warfare. Mehmed V ascended the Ottoman throne in April 1909, following the deposition of Abdülhamid II. Before his accession, he had led a simple and modest life, remaining in the background of the palace and state affairs. His rise to the throne was a significant event for both the public and the palace, as the empire anticipated change and moderation after Abdülhamid II's strict and centralized rule. Mehmed V was 31 years old when he became sultan, and the challenges of his era, especially internal and external political crises, placed great responsibility on his shoulders. Mehmed V's succession coincided with a critical period for the Ottoman Empire. From 1909 onwards, the empire faced serious pressures both internally and externally. Domestically, following the 1908 constitution, the parliamentary system was restored, but the central authority was still weak in many provinces. Ethnic and religious tensions were rising, and nationalist ideas in various regions threatened stability. In the Balkans, nationalist movements and separatist tendencies seriously concerned the Ottoman administration abroad. European powers sought to take advantage of the empire's weakened state, interfering in its territories and interests. Russia, Austria, Hungary, and Balkan states tried to expand their influence in strategic areas, while Western powers pressured the Ottomans economically and militarily, limiting the empire's independence through loans and trade agreements. Militarily, the empire was weak. Modernization of the army progressed slowly, and adapting to new technologies posed significant challenges. The economic situation was also dire. Shortages of raw materials, trade restrictions, and financial crises weakened the state and increased dissatisfaction among the population. These challenges put the Ottoman Empire at risk of internal fragmentation and external pressure during Mehmed V's reign. In short, when Mehmed V ascended the throne, the Ottoman Empire was already a weakened state, struggling with internal and external problems. Despite the parliamentary system and reforms, unity and stability faced serious trials, laying the groundwork for the challenges that would come in the following years. By the time Mehmed V came to the throne, the Ottoman Empire had transitioned to a parliamentary system with the 1908 constitution. This marked a significant change after Abdülhamid II's strict and centralized rule. The main goal of the new system was to balance central authority, reduce unrest in the provinces, and increase political participation among the people. The parliament consisted of two chambers, the Senate, Ayan, and the Chamber of Deputies, Mabusan. While the Senate was mostly appointed, the Chamber of Deputies was elected by the people as Sultan. Mehmed V formally held the highest authority in the system, but his real political interventions were carefully planned. During his reign, the parliament's activities were directed both toward implementing domestic reforms and adapting to the empire's challenging foreign policy conditions. Mehmed V had a complex relationship with the parliament. He respected the constitution and formally supported parliamentary decisions, but at the same time, he intervened when necessary to protect the stability of the empire. The Sultan reviewed laws passed by parliament to ensure they aligned with the empire's strategic interests, sometimes withholding approval or requesting changes. This demonstrated both his respect for the constitution and his protective leadership. During his reign, Parliament debated many critical issues: military reforms, financial problems, nationalist movements in the provinces, and economic crises. Mehmed V personally intervened in these discussions to safeguard the empire's security and unity. Laws passed during his reign were designed to uphold both the rights of Parliament and the Sultan's strategic oversight. Additionally, the balance between Parliament and the government was crucial, especially during the Balkan Wars and European pressures. The decisions and debates of the Parliament had significant impacts on foreign policy. Mehmed V saw Parliament not merely as a formal institution, but as a vital tool in governing the empire. His approach demonstrated both a modern and strategic style of leadership. In summary, the parliamentary system during Mehmed V's reign served as an essential instrument for modernizing the empire and maintaining political stability. His careful balance of constitutional respect and strategic oversight marked this period as an important phase in Ottoman history. When Mehmed V ascended the throne, the Ottoman Empire faced serious internal challenges. Despite the parliamentary system and the 1908 constitution, national and religious tensions persisted in many regions. In the Balkans, nationalist movements were gaining momentum. Serbs, Bulgarians, Greeks, and Albanians led separatist movements that challenged Ottoman authority, threatening both regional stability and the empire's military and economic strength. In Arab provinces, unrest was also increasing. Weak central control and economic problems fueled popular discontent. Tribal and religious tensions, taxes, and administrative methods threatened internal stability. Although provincial governors and military leaders tried to act according to Mehmed V's directives, the weakness of central authority was still evident in some regions. Economic conditions and social inequality further exacerbated internal tensions. Most of the population engaged in agriculture, but low productivity and heavy taxes created widespread dissatisfaction. In cities, industry and trade were underdeveloped, social services were limited, and living standards declined. Differences between urban and rural areas intensified social tension and unrest. Additionally, ethnic diversity and nationalism complicated the social situation. Resistance to Ottoman authority in the Balkans, Anatolia, and Arab provinces affected social stability and economic activity. Social and economic problems reinforced each other, making governance increasingly difficult. Mehmed V's reign coincided with a critical period in Ottoman foreign policy. Nationalist and ethnic movements were on the rise in the Balkans, while European powers tried to exploit the empire's weakened state. The Ottoman Empire faced pressures from both European powers and unrest in the Balkans and the Middle East. Mehmed V's primary goal was to protect the empire's borders and manage European pressures through diplomacy. He avoided open war whenever possible and relied heavily on diplomacy. He maintained a balanced strategy with Germany, Great Britain, France, and Russia, protecting Ottoman interests while carefully monitoring competition. Through diplomatic representatives and embassies, the empire's position was safeguarded, and its territorial integrity was defended in Europe. During events in the Balkans and the Middle East, Mehmed V's diplomatic skill was evident. The empire lost large parts of its territories in the Balkan Wars, but through negotiation, it avoided complete territorial loss. Ottoman interests were protected through local agreements, alliances, and European diplomacy. The principles of balance and strategic foresight guided Mehmed V's foreign policy. He recognized the empire's weaknesses and acted to minimize crises while coordinating with parliament and government to ensure external influences did not destabilize internal affairs. In short, foreign policy and diplomacy were vital to the empire's survival during his reign. In 1914, the Ottoman Empire entered World War I on the side of Germany, marking one of the most dramatic and challenging periods in its final years. Despite the empire's weak economic and military situation, the decision to join the war was made under Mehmed V's reign. The alliance with Germany provided military technology and strategic support, but increased internal and external difficulties. Participation in the war was a high-risk decision. After the Balkan Wars, the army was already weakened, and the economy was insufficient to sustain prolonged conflict. Nevertheless, the government allied with Germany to protect its position against European powers. Ottoman ports and railways were strategically important in Germany's military plans, making the empire's involvement crucial. During the war, conditions worsened across the empire. The Balkans and eastern Anatolia fronts saw continuous battles, while Arab provinces faced threats from the British and local uprisings. Shortages of food, fuel, and other essential resources heightened social tension, and civilians suffered greatly. The war also created diplomatic difficulties. Some European nations questioned the Ottoman-German alliance, and Mehmed V had to maintain a delicate balance to protect the empire's interests, control nationalist uprisings, and achieve strategic advantages abroad. By the end of the war, the empire suffered heavy losses, and its population endured hunger and disease. Administrative and social systems in many regions were on the brink of collapse. Decisions made during the war, combined with previous political and social crises, had a profound impact on the empire's future. In short, World War I was a test of strategy, diplomacy, and social stability for the Ottoman Empire. Mehmed V's decision to enter the war intensified existing difficulties and shaped the empire's final years. The social and economic conditions of the Ottoman Empire during Mehmed V's reign were complex and tense. Years of wars, foreign pressures, and internal political instability severely affected both urban and rural populations. Most of the population engaged in agriculture, but productivity was low and taxes were heavy, causing dissatisfaction and protests among peasants. Cities were not much better. Trade and industry developed slowly, and war and political instability made the economy unstable. Unemployment increased, social services were limited, and living standards declined. Differences between urban and rural areas heightened social tension, while pandemics, food shortages, and economic crises further destabilized the empire. Ethnic diversity and nationalism also complicated the social situation. Resistance in the Balkans, Anatolia, and Arab provinces affected social stability and economic activities. Social and economic problems reinforced each other, making governance increasingly difficult. Mehmed V's reign is remembered for the challenges and crises marking the final years of the Ottoman Empire. Social and economic problems, internal unrest, nationalist movements, and World War I weakened the empire, making governance increasingly difficult. In 1918, the Ottoman Empire suffered defeat in World War I and endured heavy losses. Mehmed V could not remain a powerful and independent sultan after the war. His political influence and power declined as territorial losses and internal turmoil increased. In his final years, Mehmed V lived with limited authority, and in 1922, the Ottoman Sultanate was officially abolished. Although he was no longer on the throne after 1918, he remained an observer of the empire's final years and passed away in 1926. Mehmed V's reign is thus remembered both as the period of the Ottoman Empire's decline and as the beginning of the process leading to the establishment of modern Turkey. In the autumn of 1918, a somber silence hung over the foggy streets of Istanbul. The Ottoman Empire, after years of relentless wars and hardships, was gasping for breath. The people were exhausted, the soldiers weary, and the cities plagued by hunger and disease. The new sultan stepping onto the throne was no longer just a ruler. He had to become the guardian of the empire's crumbling walls. With the death of Mehmed Reshad, the throne became vacant. His passing brought sorrow but also fear of the uncertain future. People knew that the empire had weakened, yet someone had to strive to protect order and stability. In this fragile moment, Mehmed VI Vahdettin ascended to the throne. Previously, he had lived quietly, away from palace intrigue and political power, observing history unfold from the sidelines. But his ascension suddenly placed the entire weight of the empire on his shoulders. At 47 years old, Mehmed VI carried a look of determination mixed with deep sorrow, his eyes reflecting both concern and cautious hope for the future. The ceremony of ascension was brief and official, yet its significance was immense. For the Sultan, it was more than tradition. It was a solemn pledge to the fate of the country, an acceptance of the responsibility that history had entrusted him with. The people, in turn, looked to the new Sultan with hope for the revival of the army, the economy, and the preservation of a fractured empire. Mehmed VI Vahdettin, upon ascending the throne, was not merely a sultan. He became the strategist and observer of the empire's final years. His responsibilities were staggering. Armies were weakened, the treasury depleted, the people suffering, and European powers eyeing Ottoman territories. Every decision, every step he took, would shape the future of the empire. His ascension showed that he was not only a ceremonial leader. In his gaze, one could see fear, responsibility, and the determination of a ruler trying to safeguard the empire's last hope. Within the walls of the palace, amid old carpets and fading grandeur, it felt as though centuries of Ottoman struggles and aspirations rested heavily upon him. Thus, the rise of Mehmed VI Vahdettin to the throne was not merely a prince becoming a sultan. It marked the beginning of a new turbulent chapter in the Ottoman Empire's final years, a chapter defined by wars, losses, and the monumental task of keeping the empire intact. His leadership would now be measured not just by personal authority, but by his ability to navigate the empire through its ultimate trials. If you want, I can also expand this into a fully cinematic 5 to 6 minutes. When Mehmed VI Vahdettin ascended the throne in November 1918, the Ottoman Empire faced a historic trial. The defeat in World War I had left the empire's military, economic, and social infrastructure completely weakened. Large portions of the army had disbanded. Cities and villages were devastated by the war, and the population suffered from famine and disease. At the same time, the Allied powers, Britain, France, and Italy, began occupying Istanbul and other strategic ports. As Sultan, Mehmed VI was the symbolic head of the empire, but in reality, he wielded very limited power. Military decisions and territorial defense were largely controlled by the occupying forces. This period was a time of constant diplomatic and political pressure, which weighed heavily on Mehmed VI. The struggle against occupation unfolded on two fronts: diplomacy and coordination with local and loyal leaders. Through diplomacy, he sought to protect the empire's rights and soften the pressure of the Allied powers. The Sultan relied on embassies and diplomatic representatives to maintain the empire's position in Europe and defend the integrity of Istanbul and other strategic cities from direct occupation. However, the occupation was not only a diplomatic challenge, but also a military and social crisis. Cities like Istanbul and Izmir were under Allied control, and the daily life of citizens was restricted and tense. Mehmed VI tried to stabilize the population through official decrees and government measures, but the weakness of the army and the military positions of the occupiers severely limited his influence. At the same time, Mehmed VI attempted to sustain resistance against occupation through coordination with local leaders and loyal officers. He tried to organize national initiatives, financial support, and local defense strategies to counterbalance the occupiers' strength. Yet most of these efforts were ineffective, as key cities remained under foreign control and the people were exhausted from famine and the long years of war. From 1919 to 1920, the struggle reached its most dramatic stage with the signing of the Treaty of Sèvres. The treaty handed over large portions of Ottoman territories to the Allied powers, placing the future of the empire in grave danger. Mehmed VI was forced to sign the treaty, which significantly diminished his political influence and allowed the national movement led by Mustafa Kemal to gain momentum. For Mehmed VI, the struggle against occupation was not only about protecting lands and cities, it was also about preserving the symbolic status of the Sultanate and the Ottoman monarchy itself. Every day brought new diplomatic pressures, ultimatums from the occupiers, economic hardships, and social unrest, a heavy emotional and physical burden for the Sultan. Ultimately, Mehmed VI's resistance against occupation became a story of a limited, mostly symbolic, diplomatic and strategic struggle. As the empire's final years unfolded, he remained a symbolic leader, while the Allied occupation of Istanbul and the rise of the national movement signaled the impending end of the Ottoman monarchy. In 1922, the Sultanate was officially abolished, and Mehmed VI was sent into exile, marking the conclusion of the empire's dramatic final struggle against foreign occupation. When Mehmed VI Vahdettin ascended the throne in 1918, the Ottoman Empire was in the depths of a profound crisis. Defeat in World War I, economic collapse, military weakness, and social turmoil had left the empire severely weakened. At the same time, British, French, and Italian forces occupied Istanbul and other strategic regions. In this environment, Mehmed VI's primary concern was not only defending the empire's remaining territory, but also preserving the symbolic and institutional presence of the monarchy. Preserving the monarchy required both diplomacy and political maneuvering. Mehmed VI sought to maintain the Sultan's traditional authority while using diplomatic channels to defend the empire's interests against the demands of the occupying powers. Through embassies and diplomatic representatives, he emphasized Istanbul's strategic importance, the official status of the Sultanate, and the legal position of the empire in the eyes of the world. At the same time, Mehmed VI worked to preserve the monarchy internally. He sought to maintain the symbolic power of the Sultan within the parliament and administrative structures. The weakness of central authority compelled him to remain active politically and symbolically, even as his actual power was limited. Mehmed VI carefully protected the Sultanate's prestige while navigating a state on the verge of collapse. In 1919, the signing of the Treaty of Sèvres became a critical test for Mehmed VI. The treaty ceded large portions of Ottoman territory to the occupying powers and significantly weakened the Sultanate's authority. In response, Mehmed VI tried to uphold the monarchy by complying with diplomatic requirements while coordinating with local leaders and loyalists to minimize the impact of the occupation. For Mehmed VI, preserving the monarchy also meant maintaining the Sultan's prestige in the eyes of the public and the court. Through official ceremonies, palace events, and diplomatic meetings, he protected the symbols of the Sultanate, sending a message that the monarchy remained legitimate and respected, despite the occupation and internal unrest. However, continued occupation, the rise of the national movement, and domestic instability made the struggle to preserve the monarchy increasingly symbolic rather than practical. The Sultan was deprived of real military or political power, yet he continued to act as the official head of the empire, defending the monarchy's prestige through diplomacy and protocol. Ultimately, Mehmed VI's reign became the final chapter of the Ottoman monarchy, characterized by symbolic and diplomatic efforts to maintain its authority. Until the official abolition of the Sultanate in 1922, Mehmed VI strived at every step to protect the monarchy, even as occupation, internal unrest, and the rise of the nationalist movement gradually diminished its real power. At the beginning of the 20th century, the Ottoman Empire was in a deep economic crisis. Years of continuous wars, the Balkan Wars and World War I, had paralyzed the empire's financial system. The state treasury was depleted, debts were mounting, and governing the country became increasingly difficult. Tax system and inequality. Although the majority of the population was engaged in agriculture, heavy taxes on land and produce devastated farmers and peasants. Taxes were sometimes collected multiple times, and corruption and abuse by local officials left many rural families impoverished. This situation heightened social tension and fueled nationalist movements and uprisings. Production and trade. Industry and manufacturing were mainly concentrated in cities, but Ottoman industry remained weak compared to Europe. Foreign goods entered at low prices, undermining local production. Ports, railways, and strategic trade routes were rendered unusable due to wars and occupation. This further weakened the economy and caused shortages of food and goods in urban areas. Currency and debt. The Ottoman financial system was already trapped in debt loans from European banks, combined with high interest, placed a heavy burden on the state. The value of money declined, inflation rose, and people struggled to meet daily needs as prices increased rapidly. Social and public consequences. The impact of economic hardship spread across society. In cities, hunger and disease were rampant, while in rural areas, peasants lost their land and unemployment increased. This contributed both to internal instability and to growing public distrust toward the monarchy and central government. After the end of World War I in 1918, the Ottoman Empire was already exhausted, both internally and externally. Years of continuous wars had left the empire weakened, and the streets of Istanbul carried a heavy silence, filled with sorrow and uncertainty. Ottoman diplomats, bearing the weight of history and defeat, sat at negotiation tables with the victorious European powers to sign what would become one of the most consequential treaties in their history. In August 1920, the Treaty of Sèvres was signed, marking a dramatic turning point. The treaty handed over vast portions of Ottoman territory to occupying powers Anatolia, the Kurdish regions, strategic Mediterranean coasts, and vital ports came under the influence of Allied states. Istanbul and the Bosporus area were also exposed to direct European control. The treaty's most significant impact was the severe limitation of the Ottoman Sultanate's power. Sultan Mehmed VI Vahdettin remained only as a symbolic head of state, stripped of real political and military authority. The treaty restricted the empire's economic and military capabilities, divided its territory, and made governance nearly impossible. Alongside territorial losses, daily life for the people grew even more difficult. Villagers feared losing their lands and being crushed under heavier taxes. Cities suffered from shortages, famine, and disease. The people of the empire, who had lived under the Ottoman flag for centuries, felt the deep pain of its disintegration. The Treaty of Sèvres also fueled nationalist movements. Leaders of the emerging Turkish national struggle, including Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, refused to accept the injustice and dismemberment imposed by the treaty. This treaty, instead of solidifying European control, ignited a resistance movement that eventually led to the foundation of the independent Republic of Turkey. Diplomatically and politically, the treaty became symbolic of the empire's final decline. The state, the sultan, and the institutions of the empire existed mostly as ceremonial remnants. The conditions imposed by the treaty sparked unrest, nationalist uprisings, and internal instability. Borders and territories that had been protected for centuries were now effectively lost. Thus, the Treaty of Sèvres represented the final dramatic chapter of the Ottoman Empire. It did not merely carve up the land, it also stripped the Sultanate of power, setting the stage for the national struggle and the emergence of modern Turkey. The year 1920 entered history as a period of both tragedy and transformation for the Ottoman world. After the end of World War I in 1918, the Ottoman Empire was already exhausted, both internally and externally. Years of continuous wars had left the empire weakened, and the streets of Istanbul carried a heavy silence, filled with sorrow and uncertainty. Ottoman diplomats, bearing the weight of history and defeat, sat at negotiation tables with the victorious European powers to sign what would become one of the most consequential treaties in their history. In August 1920, the Treaty of Sèvres was signed, marking a dramatic turning point. The treaty handed over vast portions of Ottoman territory to occupying powers Anatolia, the Kurdish regions, strategic Mediterranean coasts, and vital ports came under the influence of Allied states. Istanbul and the Bosporus area were also exposed to direct European control. The treaty's most significant impact was the severe limitation of the Ottoman Sultanate's power. Sultan Mehmed VI Vahdettin remained only as a symbolic head of state, stripped of real political and military authority. The treaty restricted the empire's economic and military capabilities, divided its territory, and made governance nearly impossible. Alongside territorial losses, daily life for the people grew even more difficult. Villagers feared losing their lands and being crushed under heavier taxes. Cities suffered from shortages, famine, and disease. The people of the empire, who had lived under the Ottoman flag for centuries, felt the deep pain of its disintegration. The Treaty of Sèvres also fueled nationalist movements. Leaders of the emerging Turkish national struggle, including Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, refused to accept the injustice and dismemberment imposed by the treaty. This treaty, instead of solidifying European control, ignited a resistance movement that eventually led to the foundation of the independent Republic of Turkey. Diplomatically and politically, the treaty became symbolic of the empire's final decline. The state, the sultan, and the institutions of the empire existed mostly as ceremonial remnants. The conditions imposed by the treaty sparked unrest, nationalist uprisings, and internal instability. Borders and territories that had been protected for centuries were now effectively lost. Thus, the Treaty of Sèvres represented the final dramatic chapter of the Ottoman Empire. It did not merely carve up the land, it also stripped the Sultanate of power, setting the stage for the national struggle and the emergence of modern Turkey. The year 1920 entered history as a period of both tragedy and transformation for the Ottoman world. By the early 1920s, the Ottoman Empire was no longer the vast and proud state it had once been. Years of war, occupation, economic collapse, and political chaos had drained both the land and its people. The Treaty of Sèvres in 1920 had carved up the empire, leaving Sultan Mehmed VI Vahdettin as a figurehead, powerless to influence the fate of his territories. Yet he clung to his role as the formal head of the state, trying to maintain the dignity of the Sultanate amid a storm of national turmoil. As the Turkish nationalist movement, led by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, gained momentum in Anatolia, the balance of power began to shift. The National Assembly in Ankara refused to recognize the authority of the Sultan in Istanbul. Mehmed VI faced a stark choice: attempt to enforce the crumbling Sultanate or step aside in the face of overwhelming opposition. Realizing that resistance would only bring further suffering to the people and perhaps provoke direct confrontation with the nationalists, he reluctantly chose the path that would seal the empire's fate. On November 1st, 1922, the Grand National Assembly of Turkey officially abolished the Ottoman Sultanate, the centuries-old institution that had governed the lands of Anatolia, the Balkans, and the Middle East for over 600 years came to an end. The decision was as symbolic as it was practical. It marked the final transfer of power from the Ottoman imperial system to the new nationalist Turkish Republic. For Mehmed VI, the decision was devastating. Though he had already lost real political power, the end of the Sultanate stripped him of his last semblance of authority. On November 17, 1922, he was forced into exile, leaving Istanbul aboard a British warship. The Sultan departed a city he had once ruled in name, passing through streets haunted by years of occupation, famine, and despair. His personal possessions, wealth, and imperial privileges were largely left behind. Only memories and the heavy weight of history accompanied him. Exile took him far from the land he had symbolically governed. Mehmed VI first arrived in Malta and later settled in Italy, where he lived out his remaining days in relative obscurity. The man who had been the ceremonial head of one of the world's greatest empires died on May 16, 1926, in San Remo, Italy, far from the palaces and mosques of Istanbul. The abolition of the Sultanate and the exile of Mehmed VI symbolized not only the end of a dynasty, but the conclusion of an entire imperial era. For centuries, the Ottoman sultans had embodied both political authority and religious leadership as caliphs. Their departure left a vacuum that would be filled by the modern nation-state of Turkey. The centuries-old imperial traditions, the intricate palace ceremonies, and the centuries of centralized rule disappeared almost overnight, replaced by republican ideals, secular governance, and a new national identity. Ultimately, Mehmed VI's exile and the abolition of the Sultanate were not just political events. They were the final chapters in a story of decline, struggle, and transformation. From the heights of power to a lonely ship leaving Istanbul's shores, the Sultan's fate mirrored the collapse of an empire, leaving behind lessons about resilience, nationalism, and the irreversible march of history. Against the rise of the national struggle and the formation of a new Turkish state, the Ottoman monarchy gradually lost its historical role. On November 1, 1922, the Sultanate was officially abolished. A few days later, the last Sultan, Mehmed VI Vahdettin, left the country and went into exile. Thus, the 600-year-old Ottoman Empire came to an official end, giving way to a national movement that would give birth to a new state, the Republic of Turkey.